Welcome back to the Book Nook. It seems like The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron has really resonated with you, and you're looking for some actionable takeaways to unlock that inner artist. So we're going to dive deep into that today.
I think we can definitely pull out some real gems for you today because
Mhm.
Cameron really gives us so many practical tools.
Exactly. And from what you've shared, it sounds like you're ready to jump right in and get creative.
I am?
Okay, so why don't we start with one of the most well-known tools from the book, morning pages?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty simple on the surface, just
Yeah.
3 pages of longhand writing every morning.
Yeah.
But what's the magic behind it?
Well, it is deceptively simple,
Yeah.
right? The magic is really in that stream of consciousness flow.
Okay.
It's like clearing the mental
Yeah.
cache,
Mm-hmm.
all those anxieties and to-do lists and those nagging internal critics we all have.
Mm-hmm.
You just dump them all on the page, no editing, no judgment.
So it's almost like a brain drain before you can actually start doing the real creative work.
Exactly. Cameron actually compares it to prayer. It's about creating space for something new to emerge.
I like that.
Yeah, and she tells this great story about this guy named Timothy, who was like a real grumpy skeptic.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he thought the whole thing was ridiculous, but guess what?
He became a convert.
Totally.
Yeah.
He uncovered hidden passions and creative sparks that he didn't even know he had. And, Cameron really emphasizes that it's not about beautiful writing.
Right.
It's about getting to that raw, authentic self.
That's fascinating. And
Yeah.
she even says that sometimes hating those pages can actually be a good sign.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
Because think about it, resistance often pops up when we're getting close to something vulnerable, right? Something we might be afraid to confront.
Yeah.
So those negative feelings can actually point you towards a creative breakthrough.
Okay, so I'm definitely intrigued by this morning pages concept, but how do you move from kind of purging all those thoughts to actively fueling your creativity? Is that where those artist dates come in?
You got it. So if morning pages are about clearing the canvas,
Yeah.
then artist dates are about gathering the paint. It's a weekly solo date with your inner artist,
I like that.
purely for fun and exploration.
Yeah.
It's not about producing art.
So what does an artist date look like?
Yeah.
I mean, is it all museums and art galleries?
Well, it can be,
Yeah.
but Cameron really encourages you to think outside the box.
Okay.
Anything that piques your curiosity ignites joy and helps you to see the world with fresh eyes. Like a walk in nature,
Yeah.
a concert browsing, a quirky antique shop.
Okay.
Anything goes.
So it's about filling up your creative well with all these diverse experiences?
Exactly. She uses this fantastic analogy of a well-stocked trout pond.
Oh, I like that.
You need a variety of sources, different nutrients and life forms to create a thriving ecosystem.
Yeah.
So artist dates are about stocking your creative pond with new sights, sounds, and ideas.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's not about forcing creativity. It's about nourishing it with experiences that spark those aha moments.
Absolutely. And the more you fill that well, the more you have to draw from when you actually sit down to create.
This is making a lot of sense. It's like you're building a foundation before you even start building the house.
Yeah.
But what about when those doubts and fears start to creep in?
Yeah.
I mean, Cameron talks a lot about facing those creative demons.
She does. And she has a really empowering perspective on fear.
Okay.
Fear is a natural part of the process, but instead of letting it paralyze you, she encourages you to befriend it.
Mm.
She uses this quote from Susan Jeffers: "Take a risk a day, one small or bold step, and watch your life expand."
Wow. I can already see how just that mindset shift would be huge.
Yeah.
Instead of running from fear, you use it as fuel. But what about criticism?
Yeah.
Because it feels like that's just inevitable on the creative path.
It is.
Yeah.
And Cameron has this brilliant way of reframing criticism.
Okay.
She talks about sorting the useful from the useless.
Mm-hmm.
So useful criticism helps you to grow. It gives you concrete suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
whereas useless criticism is just negativity disguised as feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And it often says more about the critic than it does about your work.
So it's really about learning to discern between the feedback that helps you evolve and the noise that just drains your energy.
Exactly. And she actually shares a story about a filmmaker who got slammed by critics early in his career.
Oh, no.
And, he could have given up,
Yeah.
but he chose to focus on the constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And he just kept honing his craft.
Good for him.
Yeah. And he ended up becoming incredibly successful.
Wow, that's so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that, every artist faces rejection and criticism, but it's about having that resilience to keep going.
It all comes back to trusting yourself and trusting your creative vision.
Okay, so I'm starting to see this bigger picture here,
Yeah.
You clear the mental clutter with morning pages.
Uh-huh.
You fill your creative well with artist dates.
Yeah.
And you face your fears head on.
Yeah.
It's like a roadmap for unlocking that creative potential.
It is.
But I feel like there's still so much more to explore in the artist's way.
There is. And it gets even more interesting as we dive into concepts like synchronicity and those sneaky creative U-terms.
Well, I can't wait to unpack all of that in part 2.
Me too.
See you then.
One of the things I think is so powerful about the artist's way is it really acknowledges the ups and downs of that creative journey.
Right.
It doesn't shy away from those moments when we feel lost or blocked.
Yeah, like those creative U-turns that feel almost inevitable.
Exactly. And she doesn't see them as failures,
Okay.
but as opportunities for growth and redirection.
Hmm.
So instead of getting discouraged, she encourages us to view them as recycling times,
Okay.
like periods where we can step back, reassess our path, and maybe even discover a more fulfilling direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a helpful way to look at it. Instead of beating yourself up for those detours, you can actually use them to gain clarity and refine your creative vision.
Precisely. It's about embracing that nonlinear nature of the creative process.
Yeah. Now, speaking of things that can throw us off course, let's dive into this whole idea of synchronicity.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, it's always been a concept that kind of fascinates me.
It's got a mystical quality to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like those seemingly random events that turn out to be incredibly meaningful, like the universe is sending us a sign.
Exactly. Have you ever experienced anything like that in your own creative journey?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I remember one time when I was struggling with a particularly challenging project,
Uh-huh.
and I was feeling so stuck and was like on the verge of giving up.
Oh, no.
But then, totally out of the blue, I ran into an old friend who I hadn't seen in years.
Wow. And what happened?
Well, we got to talking, and she mentioned this book she'd recently read that just like completely changed her perspective on the creative process, and it turned out to be the exact book I needed at that moment to break through my block.
Really?
It felt like a total coincidence, but also like something more profound was at play.
Yeah, it's almost like you were meant to have that encounter.
That's exactly how it felt. And, Cameron emphasizes that these synchronicities are not just about chance,
Right.
but about being in alignment with our creative purpose.
Mm.
So when we're clear about our goals and we're taking action, even small steps, the universe seems to conspire to support us.
So it's about trusting that inner guidance system, that gut feeling that tells us we're on the right path.
Exactly. It's about being open to those unexpected opportunities and connections, recognizing that the creative journey is not always a straight line. Sometimes it's those unexpected detours that lead to the most amazing discoveries.
I love that. So we've got morning pages, artist dates, embracing those U-turns, and recognizing synchronicity. Is there anything else in the artist's way that can help us navigate these kind of choppy waters of the creative process?
Well, Cameron dedicates a whole chapter to the concept of shadow artists.
Shadow artists, tell me more.
So she's talking about people who have this deep creative longing, but have suppressed it for various reasons,
Okay.
often due to fear, self-doubt, or societal pressures.
So they're like artists in disguise living lives that don't fully express their creative potential.
Exactly. They might be stuck in jobs. They hate pursuing hobbies that don't quite satisfy their creative urges, or just feeling this vague sense of dissatisfaction with their lives.
Yeah.
Cameron believes that these shadow artists are everywhere, often hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of having this creative spark, but not knowing how to fan the flames.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think holds shadow artists back is that fear of judgment, the feeling that their work isn't good enough.
Right, because it can be so paralyzing.
It is like
Yeah.
that inner critic takes over and tells us we're not worthy of expressing ourselves.
Yeah, and that's why Cameron emphasizes the importance of self-compassion.
Yes.
She reminds us that we need to be our own best advocates,
Right.
to nurture our inner artist with kindness and encouragement.
Exactly. And she offers some practical tools for doing that. Remember the God jar exercise we talked about earlier?
Right, the one where you write down your fears and worries and just symbolically release them.
Exactly. She encourages shadow artists to use that same technique, deal with those negative thoughts that are holding them back.
Yeah, it's like taking those limiting beliefs captive and refusing to let them control us.
And she also suggests revisiting childhood hobbies,
Yeah.
exploring new forms of creative expression, just giving ourselves permission to have fun without judgment.
Yeah, it's about reclaiming that sense of playfulness and wonder that we might have lost touch with as adults.
Precisely. It's about remembering that creativity is not about achieving some external standard of success,
Right.
but about expressing ourselves authentically.
And that authenticity is what truly shines through in any art form.
Absolutely. Cameron believes that when we tap into that inner source of creativity, we not only enrich our own lives, but also contribute to the world in a meaningful way.
It's like we're tapping into a universal energy source, and that energy flows out into the world through our creative expression.
And she encourages us to use our creative gifts to make the world a more beautiful, compassionate, and inspiring place.
I love that it's such a powerful reminder that creativity is not a luxury,
Right.
but this vital force that can transform both ourselves and the world around us. But before we get too carried away with those kind of lofty ideals,
Yeah.
let's bring it back down to earth and talk about some of the more practical nuts and bolts aspects of the artist's way.
Sounds like a great plan. We'll dive into those in part 3.
Welcome back to the Book Nook. We're wrapping up our deep dive into the artist's way with a focus on actually putting all this wisdom into practice.
Yeah.
We've talked about clearing mental clutter, filling the creative well, and even befriending our fears.
Right.
So now let's get tactical.
Okay, so that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
And Cameron provides so many exercises to help us move from theory to practice.
Yeah.
One that always gets people talking is reading deprivation.
Okay. I have to admit that one makes me a little nervous because I'm such a bookworm. Like a whole week without reading, that sounds like a challenge.
It can be, especially for us book lovers.
Yeah.
But, think of it like a palate cleanser.
Okay.
It's about silencing those external voices for a bit so you can hear your own internal voice more clearly.
So it's not about giving up reading forever.
Right.
It's about creating space for our own ideas to emerge.
Exactly. A lot of artists find that when they take a break from consuming words, their own creativity starts flowing more freely. It's like giving your mind a chance to breathe.
Yeah, I can see the value in that because it's so easy to get caught up in that constant stream of information and forget to tap into our own wellspring of ideas.
Yeah, Cameron believes that we all have this creative source within us,
Hmm.
but sometimes we need to quiet the external noise to really access it.
Now, what about the God jar?
Yeah,
It seems like such a simple concept,
it is.
but I can see how it would be incredibly powerful for dealing with those anxieties that can really block our creative flow.
It's all about surrendering those worries, those what-ifs and self-doubts to something bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
You write them down, put them in the jar, and symbolically release them.
Yeah, it's almost like saying, these are my fears, but I'm not going to let them control me.
Exactly. It's a way of acknowledging those feelings, but choosing to move forward anyway, and it can be incredibly freeing to let go of those burdens.
Now, one area where I think a lot of creative people struggle is with money.
Yeah.
It can feel like such a taboo topic, especially in the arts.
Right.
But Cameron really tackles it head on with the money madness exercise.
She does, and she helps us to kind of unpack all those deeply ingrained beliefs that we have about money.
Mm.
The ones that often limit our creative potential.
Yeah, it's like those subconscious scripts that tell us, artists are supposed to be broke or money and creativity don't mix.
Exactly. And those beliefs can be incredibly powerful, even if we're not consciously aware of them.
How does this exercise help us break free from that money madness?
Well, Cameron provides a series of prompts that encourage us to explore where those beliefs came from, how they're affecting our lives in the present, and how we can start to shift them.
So it's about becoming aware of those limiting beliefs and then consciously choosing to replace them with more empowering ones.
The goal is to cultivate a mindset of abundance,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that creativity and financial well-being are not mutually exclusive.
I love that it's about creating a reality where our creative passions can thrive without being limited by, that financial scarcity.
Absolutely. And speaking of deeply ingrained beliefs, there's another exercise called early patternings.
Oh, yeah.
That can be really eye-opening.
The one where we explore how our childhood experiences might be shaping our creative lives today.
Yeah,
That one feels like it could unlock some pretty deep insights.
it can. Cameron encourages us to think back to our childhoods and
Yeah.
recall those early messages we received about creativity,
Yeah.
both positive and negative.
Yeah, because it's amazing how those early experiences can stay with us and shape our beliefs, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Absolutely. And by bringing those patterns to light, we can start to understand how they might be holding us back in the present.
Yeah, it's like those old tapes playing in the background, influencing our thoughts and behaviors without us even realizing it.
Cameron also encourages us to remember those individuals who supported our creativity early on. you know,
Okay.
like teachers, mentors, or family members who believed in our talents.
It's about reclaiming those positive experiences,
Mm.
those moments where we felt seen and validated as creative beings.
Exactly. And those memories can be incredibly empowering, reminding us of our inherent gifts and potential.
Okay, now one of the exercises that I'm really curious to try is forbidden joys.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds so liberating.
It is. It's about giving ourselves permission to indulge in those activities that we secretly love,
Okay.
but often deny ourselves.
Yeah, those guilty pleasures that we've been told are frivolous or unproductive.
Cameron believes that when we reconnect with those forbidden joys, we tap into a sense of playfulness and delight that's so essential for creative expression.
Yeah, it's about giving ourselves permission to have fun, to enjoy the process without judgment.
And when we allow ourselves to experience that joy, it often spills over into our creative work.
Now, finally, let's talk about filling the form.
Okay.
This one seems to be all about taking action and overcoming those internal obstacles that can keep us from creating.
It is. Cameron encourages us to break down our creative goals into smaller, more manageable steps, focusing on that next right action rather than getting overwhelmed by the big picture.
So it's about silencing that inner critic that says, it's not good enough or you're not ready yet,
Right.
and just doing the work even if it's imperfect.
And she emphasizes the importance of consistency. Showing up for our creative work on a regular basis, even if it's just for a few minutes each day, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's about building that momentum, establishing a rhythm, and trusting that those small steps will eventually lead to significant progress.
Cameron believes that when we fill the form consistently, we not only create more art, but we also cultivate a deeper sense of connection with our creative selves.
So it's about the journey as much as the destination.
Yeah.
It's about showing up, doing the work, and trusting the process.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just start.
I think that's the perfect note to end on if the artist's way has sparked something in you. You remember those words. Just start. Take one small step today towards unlocking that creative potential, and who knows, you might surprise yourself with what you discover along the way.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the artist's way.